So comment, subscribe, dislike, or like. Check out the links in the descriptions for other of my sites, other activities that I'm involved in. Got a whole bunch of Facebook groups you can check out. I play multiple card games, so I do music among other things, so check out the links in the description. So this is my Crimson Bride DollHouse deck profile. So we got 2 copies of Olivia, Crimson Bride, 4 copies of The Forgotten Angel, 4 copies of Ghostband Dragon. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 copies of each. 2 copies of Westgate Regent, 2 copies of Retriever Phoenix, 4 copies of Eccentric Farmer, 2 copies of Nighthawk Scavenger, 2 copies of, well, we actually just used the shield part, so Valkyria Protector Shield, and 4 copies of Valky Gods of Lies, and we do play out Topic Cosmic Imposter whenever we get a chance. So I already posted up the gameplay, so you'll see that stuff in action, and why we have 4 of him. Obviously 4 of him should be obvious because of the fact that we're trying to mail a whole bunch of these cards into our drop. Nice little nifty little trick, right? Just wanted to point out is the idea of using Forgotten Angel to help you recycle some of your creatures, obviously, especially something with Death Touch after it dies, by using it to block, of course. Then add it back to hand, replay it, and you have a reusable way of killing things. But if Redane, God of the Worthy, ends up in the graveyard, you can obviously always bring it back through the effects of Return Upon the Tide, Olivia Crimson Bride's ability, right, and then have it die by battle while you have Forgotten Archangel, and then of course add it back to your hand, and then play it for its artifact side, and then get the protection. There's that. We have, 4 copies of Poison the Cup, 4 Return Upon the Tide, 4 Doom Scar, gotta have the board wipes, 2 DollHouse of Horrors. Even though this is a DollHouse deck, we only have 2. Only ever really need to use 1. Because I noticed that having more than 2 was unnecessary. Games don't last too long for you to need multiple copies. You only need 1, preferably around turn 6, and then just use it after that. And if it lasts long, which usually it does, puts in work. I tend to, anything that's a permanent, anything that stays on the field a little bit longer, because somebody has to get rid of it. It's not like it's a creature which will die by battle or by kill spells, because most kill spells are for creatures like Doomscar and Poison Cup. So artifacts, enchantments, lands, obviously, right? Stuff like that tends to stick on the field a lot longer. So Planeswalker sometimes, but Planeswalker can be attacked. So notice that yes, we do have a Planeswalker in here, so keep that in mind. So we only really need just 1. 1 is more than enough. It puts in the work that we needed to put in. But then we have the Olivia, which acts as an 2 more copies of DollHouse of Horrors, but at least you get the full power of whatever you bring back, as well as Return Upon the Tide acts as 4 more copies. So technically you have 8 DollHouses on the deck without actually having a lot of DollHouses in the deck. So there's that. We have 4 Bright Climb Pathways, 4 Shattered Sanctum, 4 Lightstep Pathway, 4 Death Gap Glade, 4 Crag Crown Pathway, and 4 Sundown Pass. Ironically, the only real issue with balancing out the deck was actually just balancing out the mana base, and I have a pretty good mana base here. To get the most out of it, because ironically, We only got one green card in the main deck, so we don't need too many green mana sources. So we have one green mana source there. Everything else is mainly red and white. There is another green mana source. Actually, we have 8 green mana sources. My bad. But mainly we tend to use this for red more than green. But whenever we need green, it's there. So there's at least 8 green mana sources. There's at least 8 red mana sources. Oh, actually 12. Don't forget that one. And then we have 12 white mana sources. And then, of course, black. So 12 more black mana sources. So we have 12 white mana sources, 12 black mana sources, 12 red mana sources, but only 8 green mana sources. So that's what I meant to say. There you go. So red, black, and white tends to be the most common colors in this deck, as you can see. Yeah, so I was able to balance out the mana. Well, in the gameplay, you see some of the stuff in action, but I might as well point out certain stuff. Typically, you want to use a Valkyrie turn 1 because you want to know what's in your opponent's opening, your opponent's opening hand. So that way, for the next couple of turns, you can play accordingly, right? Typically, sometimes you want to use Poison the Cup or Doom Scars. You want to foretell them as soon as possible, depending on the situation. When your opening hand, you always want a mulligan to try to get at least one eccentric farmer. Obviously, because you want to drop on turn 3. You want to obviously drop it on turn 3. That's your turn 3 play. Help you set your stuff up, and you'll want stuff like Return Upon the Tide, DollHouse of Horrors. Obviously, them to reanimate, as it were. You want them to bring stuff back from the drop. And of course, Doom Scars, to help you out with any fast-paced, aggro decks, or just in case you got mana screwed and your opponent's playing a whole bunch of stuff, and it's like, oh man, you're gonna lose just because I have less land in my opponent than, this only costs 3 if you foretell it. So if you're stuck at 3 mana for a couple turns, this definitely could be a lifesaver. So keep that in mind. Definitely want to have that in hand and foretell that as soon as possible and get it ready. Do the same thing for Return Upon the Tide, because you'd rather play it for 4 than for 5. Same thing with Poison Cup. So you just obviously want to foretell these cards as soon as possible. DollHouse, you're mainly going to play on turn 6 and above. You're not really trying to drop it on turn 5. There's other things you rather do on turn 5. We got a 5-drop right here. You definitely want to play because of lifelink and its abilities. Definitely go spam to help you ramp. Definitely want to drop that turn 5, right, and start getting that ramp and start making some plays, especially if you start foretelling some stuff. Westgate Regent definitely comes in handy, especially after you do some stuff like a Valkyrie, right, to to manipulate your opponent's hand to make it hard for them to play stuff. Then you want to drop Westgate Regent to help to make. Usually it forces them to have to play a kill spell to try to get rid of it, which means they because of the ward they have to discard a card. So this is some of your hand control. So you want to get this out as soon as possible for hand control. Of course, this so you can gain life, and then of course this combos with a lot of your cards because of the recurrent ability. Your stuff can die. You can reuse it, especially eccentric farmer, having it out there to take hits for you while you have the Forgotten Angels, so that we can always add it back, replay it, add it back, replay it, so that way you can keep milling and get some good mills. Sometimes your opponent helps you out because you might be playing against a mill deck and your opponent's dropping rune crabs, so you definitely want to save a Poison the Cup for rune crab. Save it, let them mill you a couple of times, get some good stuff in the drop, and then get rid of it, and then go from there. Don't let the rune crab stay on the field too long. Sorry. So there's that little pro tip right there. And then of course we got stuff like Retriever Phoenix, which is really nice. to play, especially on turn 4, to help you get rid of get any of your sideboard. Which reminds me, we do have 7 cards on the sideboard. Obviously, 1 copy of Experimental Sciences, Necrotic Fumes, which comes in handy because helps you get rid of exile a creature. Some creatures can't be destroyed because they become indestructible or something. This will exile it, or you just don't want them in the drop because they can always get it back or some stuff like that. So this is a really good removal spell. Sorry. And it helps you get rid of Planeswalkers sometimes. Planeswalkers become a problem, especially if you're going up against the Arlane or something, the werewolf Planeswalker. That can be a problem, especially with the fact that it becomes a creature is indestructible, so this can come in handy in that type of regards. Sometimes Poison the Cup is not enough, and that's where this comes in. And then we got Start from Scratch, which ironically can be used as a kill spell, to kill something with 1 toughness, especially if that 1 toughness creature just has like First Strike or something, or Death Touch or something of that nature. You can kill it with this, or Lifelink or something like that. You get the idea. But the fact that you can hit a Planeswalker with this, you can hit your opponent with this, so it could be a finisher. You could finish the game with this. And then it has the ability to destroy artifacts, which can come handy a lot, especially if you go up against somebody who's playing DollHouse, or they're playing their own Protector Shield. So it'd be nice to have some out to that. So really good stuff. Asika's Chariot, I've used this against that a couple times for other stuff. I don't have a lot of enchantment hate, which is the thing. But ironically, Introduction to Annihilation, I use as my enchantment hate. Because, people like to play enchantments, and it'd be a good idea to have some enchantment hate, right? So I don't have a lot of enchantment hate, but this is one thing I could use against enchantments. Inkling Summoning, 1, because it makes a flyer, obviously, right? So it's good defense against, some problematic flyers like Ghostman Dragon or something. Plus it has lifelink, so the life gaining aspect of the card comes in handy. So Pest Summoning is nice because it gives you 2 blockers, right? 2 chump blockers. They gain 2 life, so you can gain 2 life from it. So the life gaining aspect as well as 2 blockers. So you choose between whichever one you need for whichever situation. Like I said, Introduction to Annihilation, it exiles a non-land permanent, so it can get rid of anything, artifact, creature, enchantment. It's just a 1-card spot removal, so it definitely comes in handy a lot. And again, for anything that can't be destroyed, this can deal with it. And of course, Mascot Expedition, which helps you just get some bodies on board, especially late game. If you're running out of gas, running out of creatures to play, then being able to go into this comes in handy. And of course, the way you get that is through Retriever Phoenix, but only if you play Retriever Phoenix from your hand. Sucks that it doesn't apply when you bring it back from the drop graveyard. So typically you're just going to play it, but of course you can bring it back from the drop, right, through the effects of Return Upon the Tide or Olivia, right, and then with Forgotten Archangel in play. Have it bounce back to your hand, so that way you can reuse it. Be able to bounce it back to your hand and play it, and then learn, right? Learn and get access to your sideboard. And that's of course, Regent, Westgate Regent's one of our main win columns, because of the fact that every time it deals damage. Combat damage to a player, it gets a +1/+1 counter for each damage, so that comes in handy. A lot of times we would use DollHouse to bring it back as a 1/1, swing with it, deal 1 damage, then it becomes a 2/2, then after that it becomes a 4/4, then after that it's an 8/8. You get the idea, and after that 16. So it gets strong pretty quick, and that comes in handy. Nighthawk Scavenger serves the same purpose. It has 3 of the really important effects to have: Find, Death Touch, and Lifelink, right? And it has it all in space. Plus, it gets strong for every card your opponent drops, so that comes in handy. Well, for different cards, so that comes in handy. I've seen it as a 5/3 a couple times, and that's always nice to have. But the Death Touch is more than enough to take take anything down. But the more attack it has, the more life you gain for the lifelink, obviously. And it's a flyer, must have. And you might notice that all except for Farmer and Valky, everything in here is flyers. I tried some non-flyers, but it's like, nah, gotta have flyers. A lot of times, a lot of these are chump blockers. A lot of these are just defense. I put them up and they get taken down. Put them up and they get taken back down. Long enough for me to stall until I find something like a move spell or board wipe or something, and then start DollHousing my opponent to death, right? And I'll see you in another video.